So in lecture 2, we're going to discuss the function of the heart and the cardiovascular system. And we're also going to begin talking about the anatomy of the heart. Your module learning objectives, they begin at module learning objective 4, or MLO 4. Explain the primary function of the cardiovascular system. 5. Describe the size and anatomic position of the heart in the thoracic cavity. 6. Describe the 3 layers of the heart. 7. Explain why cardiac muscle is unique compared to other muscles. 8. Correlate intercalated disc and contraction of heart muscle. 9. Describe the 4 chambers of the heart. 10. Explain why the right side of the heart is considered the low pressure pump and why the left side of the heart is considered the high pressure pump. So let's get started. So the cardiovascular system is composed of the heart and the blood vessels. That includes the veins and the arteries, the venules, the capillaries, the arterioles. It delivers oxygenated blood and nutrients to the cells. It also transports waste products to disposal sites, along with several other responsibilities as well. So if you take your fist and you ball it up and you put it about mid-sternal and slightly to the left of the lower sternum, that'll be about the size and position of your heart. The average human has approximately 5 liters of circulating blood, and the heart itself circulates 7,000 to 9,000 liters of blood daily. It's connected to the large vessels. The superior and inferior vena cava, they return venous blood from the upper and lower parts of the body to the right atrium. So that's going to be your superior vena cava. So you've got your superior vena cava and your inferior vena cava right here. And then you've got vessels that carry blood away from the heart, which includes the aorta, which is the biggest artery and the most, or the artery that has the most pressure in it, and the pulmonary arteries. So the aorta delivers blood from the left ventricle to the body, but the pulmonary artery, which actually is the only artery in the adult or in the developed child without an umbilical cord, to deliver unoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs. So around the heart muscle itself, the heart, the pericardium is the sac surrounding the heart. It's the membrane that surrounds the heart and is composed of 2 layers, the parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. And within those 2 layers, there's actually pericardial fluid. So one way that I always remember visceral and parietal when it comes to these membranes around the organs, the visceral organ is always very close to the organ, so it always sits on top of the organ, and the parietal pushes away, or it's on top of the visceral pericardium on the outside. Then below that, there's 3 layers that compose the wall of the heart: the outer epicardium, the middle myocardium, which is the muscle, and the inner endocardium, the inside, the endocardium. So the epicardium protects the heart by producing friction. The myocardium is made mostly of cardiac muscle tissue. When you think like myocardial infarction, this is the layer that is affected. And the endocardium is made up of epithelium and connective tissue. And this lining is continuous with the innermost lining of the blood vessels of the body. So the heart is a very unique organ. It's essentially a ball of muscle that has properties of skeletal muscle and of smooth muscle. But it's very unique because it also has other properties as well. So the myocardial muscle is very unique to the heart. It's designed to expand and contract. And one of the ways that it occurs is through these small structures called the intercalated disc. So when the heart or the cardiac muscle contracts, The contraction occurs when calcium, the electrolyte calcium, interferes with biomarkers or cardiac markers, troponin and tropomyosin, or cardiac enzymes rather. This allows the actin and myosin fibers, so the fibers within the muscle itself, to create crosslinks that pull against each other to contract or shorten. Cardiac muscle fibers are very long branching cells that fit together at these intercalated discs. Now, something to remember about intercalated discs is that the discs form gap junctions, and this allows the walls of both the atria and the walls of both ventricles to contract almost at the same time. And in the future, we're going to learn about how the heart has to work in a syncytium, and it's very important that everything happens essentially at the same time. Here is a gap junction that would be formed together by an intercalated disc. Here's just another image so that you can see it a little bit better. So you'll see right here a term desmosome. A desmosome is a structure by which two adjacent cells are attached, formed from protein plaques in the cell membranes linked by filaments. And all of this, the intercalated discs, the gap junctions, these are all there so that these cells can kind of form together but contract so that they can actually shorten, which causes the overall contraction. So the heart itself is comprised of 4 chambers and 2 pumps. The 4 chambers, you've got the right atrium and the left atrium. You've got the right ventricle and the left ventricle. And then you've got the 2 pumps, the right side low pressure pump and the left side high pressure pump. So the right side receives deoxygenated blood from the systemic vasculature. The superior vena cava collects blood from the upper body. The inferior vena cava collects blood from the lower body, and it drains back into the right atria. The right atria then releases the blood into the ventricle. The right ventricle, and you'll notice on an anatomical model, and you can even notice in this small picture here, that the right ventricle is comprised of much less myocardial tissue than the left ventricle is. And that's because the right ventricle is a low pressure pump, because it only has to pump through the pulmonary artery, which has very low pressures compared to the high pressures of the arterial system. And so the left side is the high pressure pump because it actually has to pump blood from the left ventricle through the aorta, which again is going to be the highest pressured artery. And at that point, it's going to have to deliver blood through the rest of the body to the cells. Here's just another image of how the vena cava system delivers blood back to the right atria. The right ventricle then delivers blood through the pulmonary artery, where it's picked up at the lungs, where you have gas exchange. You've got onloading of oxygen, and you've got offloading of waste products like CO2. And then it moves into oxygenated blood, which is transported into the left atrium by the pulmonary veins. Left atrium is then transported to the left ventricle. The blood is transported to the left ventricle, which then is forced through the aorta, and then it surrounds the body again to where it eventually becomes deoxygenated, and the whole process starts over. And remember the fact that I told you earlier that the body essentially circulates the complete volume of blood in the body every minute. So this concludes Module 1, Lecture 2. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.